Now we're pleased to bring on the show a regular contributor and the perfect guy to talk to in these crazy days, our good friend David Williams, who is a speaker, an evangelist, former pastor. So glad to have you with us, my friend.
So glad to be with you this morning. How are you both doing?
Good. I'm just today doing the toilet paper check. How is it in Florida? Do you all covered in your family or what?
Yeah, we're covered. We probably don't have as much toilet paper as most of the people that we see do, but the Lord's got us.
There you go.
I know you and your family are probably going through a lot of the same things the rest of the country is, trying to figure out how to keep our eyes on the Lord and managing all the unknowns thrown at us.
Yeah, we are. It's interesting, Brian, just listening to your comments, even how the Lord has kind of reoriented you. You know, I found that last week. I'm getting ready to prepare for a sermon, and I'm just so distracted. I'm distracted by the news, by all that's happening. My eyes are so easily getting off of the Lord. I'm forgetting about the fact that he really is the king and he's in control. And I'm caught up in the craziness of the world. And I was actually supposed to preach on something an area where God has really redeemed my heart. And we've talked about it before, just the area of God, what's God's heart for the unborn, his heart for those facing unplanned pregnancy, his heart for those that have been affected by abortion. And yet as I'm preparing, I'm sensing like, I don't think this is what God would have for me to say. And knowing where my own heart is waffling back and forth, I sense that that's going on in many of our hearts. And we're searching and we're looking for answers. And I think God was like, I don't want people to know what my heart is for certain things that I have a heart for. What I want my people to have a heart for is me. And in times like this, we need to return and we need to remember that God is on the throne. And in the midst of the uncertainty of our world, all the things that we maybe look to in addition to the Lord, even though, you know, I can say the Lord he's my life and my everything. But when things are going where I feel like I can manage life, it really, I think God has really shown me that it's God plus other things. And so we can go from a place where we can almost look to our leaders and our politicians and they can give us answers. But what happens when they don't know the answer to things? What happens when we go to the technology that we look to that has given us so many advances and Google and Siri and Alexa don't have a clue for what's going on? What happens to the professionals that we look to in our world when we have, you know, things that are going on, whether the medical professionals or the scientists, and it's like they don't have a clue. What about the things that we turn to when it's like, I just want to escape because I don't want to think about the craziness in the world? Or even sports and entertainment, they're taking a hit and they're having to step aside, so we don't even have those to look to. Or how about my own job or my position, you know, the thing that I can look to or do to feel significance? Well, many of us, we're not able to work, or the way we work is different, or it really doesn't matter what we do because there's focus on all these other things or money that sometimes we can look to. And yet we see the NASDAQ, the Dow Jones, the economy taking a hit. And some of us, honestly, because of what's happening, we're not receiving any money. And so it's like all the things that maybe we looked to before, it's like they're not there to look to. And I think God in the midst of this is saying, come on, I'm here. Yeah. I'm your helper. And so it's really been a time of soul searching, I think, even for me, to see where my own heart is and to be reminded that God is the one that we need, not just in times like this where we think we don't know what's going on, because every day, if we're honest, we don't. But most of the time we think we do.
Yeah.
And I think in the midst of this, God is saying, I'm still on the throne.
So how can we, you know, in tandem, move forward with wisdom in our lives, David, to do things recommended to stay safe and not be carriers of a virus that's dangerous for the elderly and such and vulnerable, and still like lean heavily on the Lord in these times?
Yeah, you all asked that question, I think of this analogy comes to mind. A penny is nothing compared to the sun, but a penny can blot out the sun if you hold it right up to your pupil.
There you go.
And it's like that. And I think for many of us, I think it's okay for us to be looking and getting information But I think sometimes we allow it to inundate us, and it becomes so big. And to us, it becomes bigger than the Lord, because it's like all of our attention and all of our time are spent trying to find out and figure out what we need to do or what's going on. And the only one who really knows is God. And so I think it's a time for us to maybe shut the internet down a little bit.
Yeah.
Shut the news down. We turn it on, we look at it, but we don't need to spend all day looking at it, continuing to go back and forth. I think God's given us time for, as his people, to get alone with him, to spend time in his word, to come back and return to the one who is our security no matter what's going on. He's our stability no matter what times are happening. The one who has provided for us that our whole eternity is secure for him. He is the one who wants us to know that even when times are shaken in this world, he's the one who can take care of us in time. And he's big enough to do that. But are we spending time with him, being reminded of the truth and the reality of who he is and who we are and his great love for us, and drawing close to him? Or are we allowing the things and the news of this world to take precedence over him, that we, no differently than the world, are reacting in ways where we're panicking, we're becoming fearful, when yet we have a God who in the midst of chaos and calamity can grant us peace. He can give us a peace that doesn't make any sense, because he's not just a far-off God in heaven. He's a God who has come to make his home in our heart, and he wants to flood us with his peace. He wants to give us his joy. He wants to give us his perspective. God wants to speak to us that we're hearing what he has to say in the midst of this calamity. And in the world, more than even hearing what the president has to say or the news needs to tell us, they need to hear God. And I think that in these times, I think God has given a wake-up call to his church to say, and wake up, because there is a pandemic, Brian and Jannelle, that's affected humanity that's greater than the coronavirus, and it's sin. And we have the only message that can give hope in troubled times, not just for the times we're in now, but for all of eternity. And we can get to the place where we get sidetracked and we forget that there is something even more deadly than the coronavirus, more dangerous. And God's given us the antidote through the blood of his son that can be applied through the gospel. So are we taking moments to get along with God, hear from him? Remember, we're still on mission with God. We're called to live differently because we have a king seated on the throne. And in the midst of this, there are many people around us that are hurting. They are suffering. They're worrying. They are panicking. They are without hope. They don't know what to do. And God wants to use us in these times to be pointing people to him. And even when these times, if the coronavirus were to end today, would we just go back to business as usual? Will we just forget the fact that we desperately need God? Will we think again that we got life under control, we can work things out? Or will we remember that God is our only help, even when we think we know what to do, especially when we don't know what to do? But not only is he our help, he wants to use us, his church, to shine his light in the midst of a world that desperately needs him, even as we do. But most times, they're not even thinking about God. Now might be a time where they realize that everything I've looked to can't give me an answer, and I'm still in panic, and I'm still fearful, and I don't see any hope or any way out. Well, we remember the solid foundation of which we're on. So, yeah, I do think we have a responsibility. We're to honor the authorities and honor what they call us to do. But let's not in that forget that we have an ultimate authority. We have one who wants to bring his kingdom reign on earth. And we don't know in the timetable of God of where we are. And will we be faithful, be remembering that our redemption draws near. Our salvation is nearer today than it's ever been. And will we, as the Church of Jesus Christ, awake? Or will we allow this pandemic to take control of us? And we think that it's controlling the narrative when really our God is in control of all things.
David Williams, speaker and evangelist, reminding us to maintain an eternal perspective so we can be better agents of hope and God's good news. David, if people want more information about you, where can they find it?
They can go to my Facebook page at David Williams Speaks, and they can actually listen to the message that I preached this Sunday. They can find it on there from Psalm 121, talking about the Lord is our helper. And they can also go to my Facebook page, which is davidwilliamsspeaks.com.
Thank you. We love when you're on, David. Thank you for that great reminder.
You're welcome. I'd love to be on, and Lord willing, perhaps I'll see you all soon.
Yeah.
Lord willing, brother. Thanks.